Welcome to the 6th edition of Podagus, a podcast where we speak to the leaders of just about every kind of organization you could imagine in order to explore the impact of technology, both today and in the future. I'm your host, Delcy Bean, the CEO of employee-owned Paragus Strategic IT, located in Hadley, Massachusetts, and serving clients all over New England and beyond. With me today, I have Abigail LePage of Kimball Physics. Kimball Physics is a high-tech manufacturer of scientific instruments with over 50 years of experience in ultra-high vacuum electron and ion optics. The company specializes in high-stability electron emitters, precision electrostatic and magnostatic optics, along with state-of-the-art vacuum chambers and fittings. Kimball Physics is an MIT spinoff located in half a dozen buildings situated near the top of a wooded hill in southern New Hampshire. As a company run by physicists, Kimball Physics is ready to assist customers in solving practical, technical, and basic research problems. My guest, Abigail, attended Bates College, where she earned her bachelor's in physics before joining Kimball Physics as a lab tech in 1998. Since then, she has risen through the ranks and is now serving as the president and CEO. And if that wasn't enough, if I have my facts correct, Abigail was also the co-owner of Armadillo's Burritos in Keene, New Hampshire for over 9 years. Welcome, Abigail, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Delcy.
So let's start by just understanding what drew you to the field of physics and to the role that you're in right now.
I guess what drew me to it is a constant interest in learning and technology and mathematics that most people hate, and in science and the application of how it relates to real world things.
And I'm going to ask what I think may be a silly question, so you'll have to bear with me a little bit. But for the benefit of both myself and for our listeners, when it comes to technology, how savvy do you describe yourself to be?
I'd say I'm relatively savvy. There are plenty of people more savvy than I am, including a lot of our staff here. But in the field that we're in, I think we all kind of have to be a little bit savvy.
And what about outside of the field that you're in? Like when it comes to like just your home life, are you the person people are looking to fix this stuff, or are you the person asking for help?
Well, maybe both. It depends on the situation. I think a lot of people will look to me for the answers. And honestly, here at Kimball Physics, I try to encourage them not to try to get all the answers from me, because I have been here a long time, so I know the ins and outs of a lot of the products and the company itself. But try to encourage the other people getting the same kind of benefit of having to figure it out themselves and work towards the solution.
That's awesome. So Kimball Physics is not a new company, and you've personally been there for over, I think, 22 years.
Yes.
I have to imagine you've seen a lot of change during that time. So can you tell us how technology has had an impact on the organization over the 5, 10 years, or even further back?
Well, when I think about it, when I started at Kimball Physics, we didn't even have basically a central email system, which is shocking because it really was. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, and email definitely was in existence. But the company itself had kind of taken its time on, getting really deep into the IT technology. So starting at Kimball Physics, honestly, would have emails put on a floppy disk, and somebody would walk to my desk so that I could load them onto my computer. It was really ridiculous for a physics company to be so far behind, but we're well past that now. We've grown. We've gotten centralized. We've been trying to go more paperless, and just trying to take advantage of all there is in the IT world to help us.
And then I have to imagine there's the technology that runs the business. There's the office. What about the technology in the work that you're doing? How has that evolved in terms of the tools that you have available to you, the products you're creating? Like, what does that look like over the past 5 to 10 years?
Well, so definitely we've gotten more accurate machines. We have our own machine shop at Kimball Physics. We have a number of CNC machines. milling and lathe. We use a lot of we actually use a lot of old technology as well. Some of the products that we make are very tiny on the scale of a third of a millimeter is the major OD, and so we actually have retrofitted a number of old jewelers' equipment to be able to customize for the equipment we need to make these very delicate, intricate pieces.
Well, that's really interesting. So, as you think about the future, what do you think the next 3 to 5 years is going to look like when it comes to how technology will impact the organization and the work that you guys are doing?
Well, I think one thing that we've been heavily reliant on, and which is a very good thing and also a kind of risky thing, is the skill of the people that we have working with us, and their ability to basically make beautiful tiny artwork by hand. And I think with automation and all the new technologies coming, we want to take advantage of that. But we need to transition from the know-how and the hand skills to processes that are taking advantage of all that's out there, which will give us better reliability and repeatability and increased capacity.
And is there a technology in the world of physics that could totally disrupt the whole industry that would be a game changer?
Well, there's a lot of new work being done in the cold physics field, which is basically slowing down atoms to the point that they start acting completely differently than they do at room temperature or any other temperatures. So they're approaching absolute zero with the temperatures that they're able to cool these particles to, and that's going to open up such different types of technology that could affect Kimball Physics, and we're involved. We make a lot of vacuum chambers, which you mentioned in the intro, but those are basically chambers. Actually, I do have one here. They're chambers that are made out of solid stainless steel, and they have these ports all around that you can put flanges on, seal them up, and then pump them out so that you can get a high vacuum. And so these chambers are used in the field of cold physics so that they can trap the atoms in the center and have laser access from X, Y, and Z to be able to actually cool the atoms with an magneto-optic trap.
Wow. So for somebody who's totally ignorant about this, what's the practical application of being able to do this? What happens when you can get an atom down to zero?
Right. So they are just learning so much about how the properties change and how it can relate to the semiconductor industry, electron emitters eventually, and I think that the research, it's almost endless what practical applications there could be, and it's still being determined what can be done to make it so that it doesn't have to be in a large lab, but they can miniaturize and make it more accessible to a lot of other fields.
So right now, are we talking about billion-dollar technology, hundreds of millions of dollars, tens of millions? Like, what's the space that we're talking about?
Well, I think the opportunity out there, it could be billions of dollars technology if it really changes the way things are done, and how we can get into computing and quantum computing and things like that. It's endless, really. But we're facilitating. We're not doing the research. We're providing equipment that allows them to be able to continue this research. And that's one thing Kimball Physics really puts a lot of effort into, is trying to stay up on the cutting edge technologies that we're not necessarily inventing or researching, but we're maybe enabling in some way.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely sounds like it. So you mentioned earlier kind of that dependency on highly skilled labor is, whether it's a vulnerability or an opportunity, depending on how you look at it. Do you see technology solving that problem? Do you see machines or AI or big data or robotics having an impact in your field?
Yes, and I think you said it correctly. It's both an opportunity and a threat, because if you have skills that other people can't copy or duplicate, that can be a good thing. But if that limits you and the growth that you can have based on capacity or the risk of potentially losing that person that has that skill, we have to look at the opportunities of adding new technology and using robotics and increased precision and all that comes with automation.
And just for the benefit of kind of helping to picture, you describe this facility as it's in several different buildings in this beautiful southern New Hampshire, which obviously I'm very impartial to. But tell us, like, what does the facility look like? Are we talking hundreds of machines, a couple of machines? Like, give us like a virtual tour of your office in words.
Okay, in words, we have a machine shop with about 10 machinists, um, about 15 different tool stations. We have a micro machining facility, which is where we do the micro products, and there's probably 30 different machines on a small scale. It's actually from the outside, it looks like just a little white house. You go inside and there's flow benches, to keep particles off the product, and tiny little lathes to be machining, and lasers to be able to figure out crystal structure, and scanning electron microscope to be able to do the research we need to do to have the best product we can have. So that's all hidden in a little house. And then the main facility is a large red barn, which fits into our rural setting. But the bottom floor is our machine shop, and the top floor is vacuum labs. So you enter the red barn, and it looks very different than the barn used to look, with stalls and hay and various animals.
Well, that's awesome. So, when you think about technology, we've already talked about kind of one of your fears. What other fears do you have about tech in your industry or in your business?
Well, I think that product obsolescence always can be a risk, and we've had a product that has been providing electron emitters to the world for 45, almost 50 years, and honestly, the design really hasn't changed all that much. There've been some improvements with minor tweaks, and little changes to the design, but in general, it's been the same product for 45 plus years. And in any company, that eventually is probably going to change. The world need changes, or some new technology comes that basically wipes out the properties of that particular product, and now you have to change gears and get onto something else. So I think being keeping up with technology and researching different materials that could maybe become the new product is high on our list. So we have a number of physicists, and we're constantly doing the R&D to try to keep up.
Have you guys ever experienced a major cyber incident or outage?
Well, we've definitely had a power outage that lasted 10 days at one point. Well, I think, was that 2012?
Talking about the Halloween snowstorm?
We had a crazy ice storm.
Yeah.
That took down trees everywhere, and all the power lines, and Kimball Physics was out for 10 days, and so that wiped out power and internet, of course. And we had generators around, and extension cords running everywhere. It was kind of crazy. We have made major changes since then, and we now have backup generators for all the buildings that turn on within less than a second. So we've kind of gotten out of that. As far as cybersecurity, we've definitely had some close calls, and with the help of our outside IT department, we've we've caught them and not had anything drastic happen in the company. But we're constantly getting those, phishing emails and trying to educate our coworkers to know that that's not an email from Abigail LePage just because it says that. Look at the whole address. And so, and we're sending out reminders, and we let them know when we start seeing, trends of certain kinds of scams.
So we often talk about technology as making our lives better and improving our businesses. Have you had an instance where you felt like it actually made things worse?
Well, honestly, the whole remote work was thrown on us like a lot of companies, and we we had to go with it. And I think there's been a big benefit to that, and figuring out that we can have productivity with people working remotely. That's helped us with some space issues. But on the downside, we've really struggled with how to keep the communication going, and to effectively have meetings and interaction, and a lot of the team has really felt that lack of communication between their peers and coworkers, and that's been a real struggle for us. So we're still trying to work on that balance. Remote work is not going to go away. I think we know that it's here to stay, and that's a good thing. But we have to work on how to get some of that personal touch back when you have to be working with a Zoom call or Microsoft Teams or whichever platform you're using.
And you already spoke to this a little bit, but let me just ask it again. As the CEO of a very successful and a very important organization, what do you do to personally keep up with everything that's going on in the technology space, kind of both within the industry and then within just the technology of running a company?
Well, my favorite way to keep up with what's going on in technology is talking with our customers. We have world-class customers at universities and government labs, and we do work with Los Alamos and Lawrence Livermore and Stanford University and CERN, and it's talking with the customers about the things that they're working on, the problems that they're having, that help us really develop the next products that we need to make. And whether it's a good business decision or not, we're usually willing to get into the tricky problems and try to see what we can do to solve them. And maybe we're not making the profit, but we're keeping on that cutting edge of new technologies and constantly trying to stretch ourselves as well.
Yeah, that's terrific. I think that's a great answer. So before I let you go, it's time for what we call Fast Questions with Flat Delcy.
Thanks, Delcy, and good afternoon, Abigail. In just a moment, I'm going to read you a series of choices, and your job is to, as quickly as possible, just tell me which is your preference. You ready?
Yes.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Phone call or text?
Text.
Eggs or pancakes?
Eggs.
Candy or popcorn?
Popcorn.
Fantasy or sci-fi?
Oh, sci-fi.
Superman or Batman?
Batman.
Tacos or burritos?
I have to say burritos.
Football or basketball?
Football.
Drums or bass?
Bass.
Boat or plane?
Boat.
And finally, most important, Vermont or New Hampshire?
Oh, New Hampshire.
Well, thank you so much for being our guest today, Abigail. It was great to learn more about your organization and yourself, and I know that our listeners are going to be very excited to hear this.
And thank you. It was a pleasure.